music.
Just
So
sing.
No, it was the worst.
anyhow, I think we're live now. We're live.
No, we've
Hello.
been live the whole time.
Have we?
Welcome to the Five Stack. Yeah, my name is Dean. That is Zev Shalev. Narrative.org is where you can find my man Zev, one of the best investigative reporters alive. And one of the other best investigative reporters alive joins us today from the Panicked Writer Substack. Miss Ellie Leonard, you just brutally genius and brutally hardworking, and she's one of the only people other than Zev that has read every single file in the Epstein
I think
files
she's the only
document,
one who's
every
actually read everyone.
single email. My God, is that true? Is that true?
Yeah.
Every page.
I worried so there's a button on my laptop that's actually cracked down the middle, and it's like the button that you press to scroll down. So yes, I've read all the pages.
This is what?
How many pages is that?
100,000
Yeah.
pages?
Well, so I haven't read everything that's in the 30,000. I'm starting to go back and read the original 30,000, but that's more like court documents. The one that came out this last time, I think, was 23,000, wasn't it,
Yeah.
or something like that? But
Yeah, it was.
Now, some of it is just one line emails, right? They're just sort of like back
Yeah.
and forth and people just saying, hey. But
Just
it's
when your eyeballs start burning, you take a break because
Yeah.
it's just a lot of staring.
yeah, to start getting and Ellie about maybe an hour ago alerted me to the fact that there was new oversight
Mhm.
Democrat photos that came out, and we've got all of them ready. You're going to look through them live on the show
ones.
today because there is just a lot to look at. There's some interesting photos of passports, lots of scantily clad women. So that's a good tease, right?
Mhm.
And also,
Barak is back.
and who's
He's
back?
just gonna be there. Ehud Barak. He's just
Ehud
gonna be in
Barak,
every drop
yeah.
they do.
And there's a lot of people that we hadn't seen before, and we're going to try identify them on live. So that's coming up in today's show. Plus a lot more, Dean. We've got news about last night's very long and lengthy broadcast that we did for Donald Trump's very short and kind of impossible speech that he did. 20 minutes of just shouting at the camera, shouting at the American people. We're going to go through that, and we're going to explain all the lies that he
Are you
gave.
talking about his 19-minute long, nervous, fucking, desperate breakdown? Is that what you're talking
It
about
looked
last
like
night?
that. Isn't it what it looked like? It looked
that's
like
what
this
it was.
guy was in,
Yeah.
panicking,
It's a human
literally
headache.
panicking, begging.
He was in
for his job.
distress.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a 2x before, like behind him, propping him up. Like I just felt like, those really old Wild West pictures where they had like dead people in the window all propped up, and it was like that's what I felt like. I felt like someone just sort of like pushed him forward and gave him a microphone and
Like Weekend at
off he
Bernie's
went.
kind of thing.
Yeah, like
Yes.
Weekend at Bernie's, or like an old West movie where they prop the body up in front of a coffin and they parade them by when the marshal gets the bad guys. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because not only was it, and we'll get to it, one of the greatest worst speeches I've ever heard from that man. He was in distress. He couldn't finish his sentence. His transitions were fucked. He was slurring the entire time. He didn't make any sense. He couldn't even fucking repeat 1,776. Like, he literally is as lost as I've ever seen him. So we'll get to that this morning this afternoon as well. And I'm really glad that Ellie is here, because to make sense of it, you need people that have had eyes on it, and both of you have had eyes on all of these things. And we'll also get to a couple of other stories too. The Republicans have seemed, a few Republicans seem to have grown a spine, handing Mike Johnson a loss. We've got some measles to get to as well. And of course, the Epstein files photo dump and Trump's Wednesday lies. We'll debunk some of those today too. But let's start with this last Epstein files dump, because it happened like an hour ago. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, my lunch break.
Yeah. House Oversight Democrats released 68 new photos today from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, one day before the Friday, December 19th deadline for the Justice Department to release all their Epstein files from the FBI investigations.
Did we lose him?
We lost him.
I'm here. I'm going to be here voice only. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got,
Okay.
Yep.
So these photos are from a trove of 95,000 images the committee received last week, and they're just putting them out piece by piece. There's quite a few here that we're going to take a look at, and we'll go through them slowly, but you can see them scrolling on the big screen here. Timing is deliberate. Garcia, the representative, wants these photos in public view before Pam Bondi decides what she'll release tomorrow. So we'll see what's in these images today and what we can expect tomorrow. And as we just scroll through them here, Ellie, is anything that catches your mind? I mean, it's certainly, there's a lot of women, a lot of, and then a lot of these people. I don't know who this guy is. Who's this guy making?
Sultan. That's Sultan bin Salam.
It is the Sultan.
The other guy was the Sultan, and he's the CEO of DC World, and he's just there all the time. But apparently they were making like sausages or meatballs or something.
The Sultan was a good friend, right, of Jeffrey's, and also
He's the guy. He's the guy who he put his name on the deed to buy the bigger island, the second island, because the person
that's
who
what I was
owned
going
the island
to. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's another island, and Epstein got it bought for him by the Sultan. The Sultan put down the money. That came out quite recently. This is Steve Bannon. Lots of Steve Bannon here.
He's so sweaty.
And disgusting. And is that Jess Staley? Did we decide Jess Staley is this person? On
no, you know who that is? That's Tom Pritzker.
Oh, yeah. Tom Pritzker. Okay, that's interesting.
Yes. I've been researching all afternoon.
And this guy, is this from the Palm Beach Police Department? It could be that guy would, because he had very close connections there. And this guy, do you know this guy?
Miro. It's I don't know how to pronounce his whole name, but he's called Miro, and he's in all the emails.
Yeah.
And here come the scantily clad things. This is
what is that? What am I looking at here?
Lolita. Okay. Lots of Lolita.
The book is the Lolita, of course, and these are quotes taken, and and it's of course about an underage love affair, and these are the quotes from there that she's inscribed, or someone's inscribed on her back and on her neck. A lot of these young women would have found themselves, said they were in love with Epstein, really loved him. Who knows? These are passports, a whole bunch of passports, not necessarily belonging to Epstein.
There are a lot of the women.
Yeah, probably the women. That's why they're blacked out, is my guess. You see them from this is Saudi Arabia link or
I want to kind of talk about these passports. I know we're kind of flipping through these, but Ellie, Zev, you guys have been through it. Yeah, when you see these passports, and obviously these came from the Epstein estate, right? That means these passports of these women from Saudi Arabia, Ukraine, Russia, England, a bunch of different countries, were in Jeffrey Epstein's possession. Why would that be in your estimation?
He used that as a threat all the time. So he had girls who tried to escape the island by swimming away, and they would go out and get them, and they would detain them and restrain them, and then that was always their threat, was they would take away their passports. And these were girls, from all over the world. So that was something that he did all the time.
Yeah, and the passports do reflect the information we have in terms of transfers of large amounts of money that went through J.P. Morgan that Senator Wyden has released. So we know that these countries are countries that he interacted with financially in order to move these women back and forth, whether he was buying them or hiring them as models. It's unclear, but there is a lot of money, $1.1 billion of money that flows through these Russian banks into all these various countries. This one looks to me like it's either Saudi Arabia or somewhere in the Middle East. Obviously,
I got to tell you something. I've seen creepy before, but in a different way. If you're going to move on the level of creepiness, this seems incredibly creepy. Like I want to know what happened to these women. I want to know if they were paid off. Mm-hmm. I want to know why he has their passports. It's a lot of information that we don't get. We just get the blacked out passports of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, who, as you pointed out from going through these files, Ellie, has said that effectively this is his way of controlling these women. I want to know how many passports he had.
I would wonder, because I would bet there's as many passports in the estate as there were bank accounts at J.P. Morgan, because he would go in and make these bank accounts for women who were not even in the room with him, and probably not of age, because he didn't give birth dates, he didn't have social security numbers. He would bring in, my guess is he'd bring in these passports and just hand them over, and they'd write up a bank account for him, and then he'd start filling it with money for these girls.
A lot of these girls were brought in under official visas, right, that were gotten for them because they were coming to model for Jeffrey or coming to model for some of these agencies. So to get those visas, they would have needed the passports. There is a quote from.
So hold it. Ellie just dropped a bomb, and we sort of just kind of pressed past it. Yeah. But what you're saying is that these emails, or sorry, these photographs of these passports that allegedly belong to Jeffrey Epstein's victims, of which we've looked at dozens already on the screen. If you're watching and pay attention, by the way, everybody, I need you to go hit that Chiron at the top. Follow every single person on this podcast. Give us a sub. That'd be great, because you're not going to find this anywhere else. No one's going to go through these. But what I find really interesting is what you just said, which is Jeffrey Epstein would take these passports belonging to these women, go into JP Morgan Chase and open up a bank account in their name so that he could pay them off? Is that the attestation? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
there was lots of, I mean, there was lots of reasons that he opened accounts. Like Zev's gone through all the JP Morgan stuff more than I have, but like when you read through all these emails, like you get the notion that he probably wasn't speaking to a no-name banker when he went in and he says, I want to go open an account. He'd go find a buddy and he'd say, here's somebody new, can you write up an account for them? Here's their passport. They did not have to be with him. There was no birthdays associated with their bank accounts. And then he, I mean, sometimes the money would be for the girls, but sometimes it would just be, they would just be a front for another money making venture for him to put into that bank account. And then there would be these weird amounts of money that were all exactly the same and all just under the threshold of having to be reported. Or there would be, you know, his philanthropy, charitable contribution accounts would be being used for a lot of retail stuff and lingerie and just weird items. But he would do it under the guise of all these different girls' names so that they would have bank accounts and legitimacy.
You raise a really
So
good
Zev,
point.
how do you? Oh fuck, it's awesome. I'm so glad. And now I want to tag you in if I can, because you've studied the financials more than anybody on planet Earth. When you say they connect to these passports, how do you see that? Like, what are the connections that you've been able to kind of surmise through your research?
The thing that I'm always struck by is that the $1.1 billion that it supposedly went through all these Russian banks, such a large amount of money. It would have to be an incredibly large amount of girls and a real loss leader for this man. It would have cost a fortune if he was paying all these women so much money. So I think what you've got to surmise is that some of it's what Ellie's just talking about is that they were using these girls and these passports and these people from different countries in order to launder money back and forth. So, you know, if they had an account from this person here in Lithuania, maybe they could open an account using that and then use that as a vehicle to pass a lot of money laundering from Russian bank accounts into the United States. That's my assumption. That is not proven anywhere, but we know that there is a large amount of money laundering. You know, the biggest thing that happened here in terms of Epstein and Trump is money laundering, and it's financial crimes. Those are, you know, the other crimes are very important for ethical, moral reasons, but in terms of the scale of what they were doing, they were really after the money. And it seems to me that these women were perhaps mules in some way for that illegal money.
Their identities were mules. Their bank accounts were mule bank accounts. To your point, they weren't just used for espionage. They weren't just used for honeypotting, trapping. These were passports belonging to women that lived in certain countries that strategically Jeffrey Epstein and his associates wanted to flood money into said country to engage in all manner of bullshit.
In most cases,
is that correct?
out.
And a lot of them were girls too. A lot of them were not of age, at least in the U.S. And my guess is most of, you know, you see him taking out these large amounts of cash, these $30,000-$40,000. My guess is he paid a lot of them under the table. He wasn't like transferring funds into their bank account because they didn't want any kind of a paper trail that he was paying off underage girls for, you know, stuff like that. So my guess is they weren't actually paid back and forth in these accounts. This was specifically for the laundering and then just in their names.
It's a really good point you're making about the cash, because that's what triggered JP Morgan's, all their alerts inside the bank was about the, you know, why is this man taking out $30,000, $40,000 at a time and on such a regular basis? It seems such a trigger for them in terms of what is a human trafficking account, that they kept, you know, red flagging it. Of course, JP Morgan never did any submission of those red flags, didn't do any SARs or warnings to the Treasury until after Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019, you know. So they kept collecting all this information, all these red flags saying, Jeffrey Epstein looks like a human trafficker to us, and then doing nothing about it, which is why there is such a renewed effort now by the Senate to really bring the JP Morgan executives, the Deutsche Bank executives, and other bank executives who are involved in all of this to account, because they funded this human trafficking network. It's them that did this, and they did it against the law. And that is why there's a lot of explaining that needs to come from Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, but also the other banks that are involved in this.
I want to get to the rest of the pictures, but you bring up a great point is, you know, in the world that I live in, which is not the billionaire world, I know it might strike some as crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you should be.
But I can't walk into a bank and open up a bank account in someone else's name.
No.
Yeah. I can't. So here's the deal. my husband and I have had accounts that we've wanted to close, just like a checking account or something. I can't walk into a bank account that we are both on and just remove myself from the bank account. I can't do that unless he's there with me. You can't remove a single person from the bank
Yeah.
account. Like, it's so locked down that I can't walk away, even with all my own information. I can't take myself off an account without the other person on the account there in the room with me. Like, it's very locked down. So this is definitely some fraternization going on at JP Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jess Staley, who was the head of private bank of the JP Morgan private bank, was the best friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and that is a big concern to this day, as how close they were, what his involvement was in terms of furthering not only this the human trafficking piece of it, but the crash of 2008, the financial crash of 2008, which I'm still unpacking on Greatest Heist, so people haven't seen how it happened, but there's plenty of evidence to share in terms of there being sort of a determined and predictable implosion of the market in 2008, so they could all benefit from it. In fact, maybe they inflated the market completely in order to be able to pop it at their desired time through their mechanism in order to crash the market. That might even be a better description of what happened.
Right.
That's wild. I mean, it's amazing because strategically, the Oversight Committee, specifically the Democrats that are in possession of the Epstein estate pictures, which is where we're getting these from, where we're getting the passport pictures from, it feels like they've been sort of building a story, and that story goes from not just the salacious stuff, Donald Trump, to this point. Can you read this? Because this thing shocked me.
Yeah,
go back one if you
let me
can.
pull it up for us. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know. You go ahead.
We don't know the context, but this is an email that is in Jeffrey Epstein's possession. Ellie, maybe you know who is behind this?
I don't know who's sending this. That was my first question, because I think this is the first thing that I saw.
Yeah, me too.
This is clearly kind of the quintessential trafficking that he did. Like, this is the stuff that everybody's denying happened. This is legitimately the most quintessential version of everything that he was doing with these girls. So it's my guess is these are maybe text messages, just because they have the little times at the corners. But I don't know who these are from. I would guess that they're either I wouldn't think that they're from Ghislaine Maxwell, because she was a horrible speller, but my guess is this is from one of his assistants.
Yeah.
Or it could be from Jean-Luc Brunel. They used to share these texts from time to time, or Epstein, between and back and forth. Jean-Luc Brunel was a scout for Epstein, had his own deal going on. He died in a prison cell. He hanged himself too. Strange. Can you read this to us? Read this to us, Zev?
Yeah.
I don't know. Try to send someone else. Is the first one. I have a friend scout. She sent me some girls today, but she asks $1,000 per girl. I will send you girls now. Maybe someone will be good for Jay? ? And so it's obviously not talking directly to Jeffrey. It's talking about
him.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And then it's his name, 18-year-old, height, measurements, weight, Schengen. I'm not sure what that is. And then the departure city is somewhere in Russia. So this is someone obviously trying to send identities of Russian girls to someone in Epstein's orbit to see if he's interested in
here's what it is.
Yeah.
Schengen is the EU's passport-free travel zone.
Ah, interesting.
So traveling without a passport through the EU, check.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So this is what they did. They scouted girls around the world. They brought them in under legitimate purposes. They brought them in as models. They supposedly were joining modeling agencies, coming to America to build their dream, coming to America to achieve fame. Some of them, maybe a few, actually achieved fame, but the vast majority of them were turned into sort of high-end escort / models, where you would have to go on modeling shoots and get paid, a lot of money for your agency in order to also sleep with whoever was hiring you. And then there was these underage models, and there were also spies, real Russian spies, which you've authenticated at least two, that came in under the cover of these modeling agencies in order to help Jeffrey Epstein in his spying on the AI community, on the Silicon Valley community. So there's there's much more than just underage girls here and just human trafficking. There is human trafficking being used as a front and also human trafficking being used as a compromat factory, and as a spying agency. Really, it was almost like a like a like a bad version of a Charlie's Angels, if you will. He was sending these girls out to do spy work.
He really diversified this pedophile sex trafficking ring. You know, that's one of the things that strikes me when we look at stuff like this, and we, you know, I put Milani in the same category. Sorry, I just do. I think she's one of his girls.
Oh yeah, for sure she is.
I
I
do.
mean, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe even a KTV one. Sorry.
It's that,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
that Einstein visa. Everybody brought across on the Einstein visa. The whole program is corrupt.
Well, I
Like,
came in
there's-
on the Einstein visa, so let me say,
Well,
and
okay,
I'm
so
not
there
a
was
model.
one
But
non-corrupt. You're the one and only.
but there, you know, and it's a fairly stringent visa, I should point out.
Yeah.
It's not one of these things that anyone can get. But back then, it might have been a lot easier. And what they did is
Yeah.
they laundered these through the modeling agency in Tel Aviv, because at that time it was much easier to get people coming in from Tel Aviv. So they sort of moved people through the Tel Aviv office into the United States. But the Tel Aviv connection is also interesting, of course, because Israel is very connected to Jeffrey Epstein as well. And the modeling agency, if I'm not mistaken, that became the Jean-Luc Brunel modeling agency was originally an Israeli modeling agency
It was,
based in Tel
yeah.
Aviv. So,
Yeah.
you know, this was a very big operation. Obviously, it was not just about.
These are not small time bit players in some kind of light international criminal theft ring. These are some of the most powerful people in the world. And you know, we've looked at passports, and we're seeing Steve Bannon on the screen with Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen this before. We know what Steve Bannon was, which is, you know, a con man trying to con Jeffrey Epstein into the idea that he can help him with his reputation, which was toast. Didn't matter. But one of the things that I find interesting are the A-list celebrities that are in a lot, and billionaires and world leaders that are in a boardroom in a couple of these pictures, where you've got David Blaine entertaining people, Jeffrey Epstein standing up behind Woody Allen on the left, what appears to be Ehud Barak on his right. Tom Pritzker is also in the picture.
It's not the one, but let me get
What
the
are
actual
you-
ones you're talking about.
Oh, that's okay. We'll get it. What do you see? Let's start with Ellie, if you can. What do you see in some of these pictures with these individuals when you are triggered to think about some of the emails and documents that you've read? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think about the VIPs, and that would be Ehud Barak. Like, he just keeps showing up and keeps showing up and keeps showing up, and I think it's validating for me because I've been trying to make that known for a little bit. But also, Woody Allen is just there all the time.
Mhm.
David Blaine is interesting because there's emails from him because he was trying to bring people across on Einstein visas, and he was asking for referrals from Epstein to help him to do
Who's
that.
this? Who's this?
Is
that Larry Summers?
No,
No,
that in the background is Tom Brook from
Yeah,
the New
it's
York
David
Times.
Brooks. David Brooks,
David
right?
Brooks, sorry,
Yeah.
David Brooks.
But this in the front, I'm
Um,
wondering who that is. That's interesting, just a face. This
Oh,
is Sergey Brin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's Sergey
Yeah, it
Brin.
is.
Yeah, I can go through it. I've got the table full of like professors. I
There's
went
David
through
Brooks
and
again.
yes,
Where
there he
is this? Where are these pictures taken?
So I think this is from, you know, he was part of this organization where all these founders of Silicon Valley used to meet on a regular basis. And it escapes my name right now, but my brain right now. But there is an organization he used to have a regular meeting with. I think he was maybe
Yeah, but
even the
is this in
founder.
New York? Is it
This was in San
on-
Francisco, I would think.
Okay,
I think.
all right.
And so he would go and connect with all the Silicon Valley founders, and that's where you get his connections to Elon Musk, to Zuckerberg, to Sergey Brin, all of them. I mean, he was good friends with every single one of them. And of course, Bill Gates comes up repeatedly, and we see Bill Gates here with some very compromising photos as well in this photo release today. So you know, you've got he was the reason they were doing this was for spying. I mean, they were very interested in America's development in the AI sector and in Silicon Valley. And he was basically using his connections there in order to mine that information, in order to give it to his clients, which were essentially Russia, Israel, and other countries like that, and China perhaps. And so that's where the core of this comes from. You know, it's not just about girls and having a good time. These were ways of embedding himself through women and through investments and through other means into these communities so he could learn about what they were doing and then, you know, what he did with that afterwards is unclear. Whether he stole it or sold it, I don't know. But why else would you need those to spend that vast amount of money if you weren't going to do it for that reason?
So,
So the one
Ellie,
sorry,
yeah, go ahead,
I was just going
please.
to tell you real quick. The one that we didn't know who he was, he's the former CEO of YouTube, and his name is Salar Kamangar, which I'm mispronouncing. But
that's
yeah,
interesting.
he's the former YouTube CEO.
I'm gonna have to go through this
Oh my
room again
God.
just to see if we can find these others. I don't have them ready available, but
I've got my little list of names,
Yeah.
so I don't
What
know.
are we
all of
looking at
them.
here? Is this a drug?
yeah, Finazep.
So that's for
ahead.
urinary tract infection. So if you had an infection,
Oh, for
and you couldn't go to the
UTIs.
bathroom, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, his place is pretty. This is the meeting as well. I think this is a scientific meeting. Maybe this was an MIT or one of those places because he was very engaged in the same way he was in Silicon Valley and in the AI world. He was very interested in what was going on with nuclear physics, and he spent a lot of time, especially at Harvard, trying to get information. Here's some women again that these are potentially victims that we're seeing, which is why they're blacked out.
The one on the left is Sarah Kellen. I'm pretty sure the woman in the denim is Sarah Kellen.
Oh, it's interesting.
I'd be
We've
positive.
seen this guy before. This is the Sultan you're saying.
That's a different guy, though. I'm not
Okay.
sure who this guy is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just want to get to that boardroom because that boardroom is interesting, and I don't have them as a single shot here. But it is interesting who's around that table.
While you're trying to get to the, I want to get to the boardroom shot. While you're trying to get to it, Ellie, when you say that Ehud Barak comes up, I've been shocked. He's like, position 1A outside of Epstein.
He's a bad
Right.
guy.
Yeah. What are you seeing? Obviously, you're seeing it all come together, but his words and actions and, the things that we've read from Virginia Giuffre's Nobody's Girl, the assertions that the person that beat her the worst, hurt her the worst, abused her the worst was a prime minister, widely thought to be Ehud Barak. When you say he keeps coming up, how much of this has surprised you, and in what way does he keep coming up?
I mean, I wrote an article about this a little bit ago through Blue Amp, where I just kind of like detailed the whole thing because he spoke at the New York Times.
There he is.
Yeah. If I go, right there in the middle. I called them because I know the people who run the Deal Book Conference. I called them and I emailed them and said, what are you doing? As well as I do. Like, he's very involved. He is the prime minister described in Virginia's book because she only knew two, and the other one was Tony Blair, and Tony Blair was nowhere near Epstein. He had one meeting with him. He didn't go to the island. He didn't hang out. He has no sexual assault allegations against him. It's just not him. And then I also have a source who knows Virginia, and I asked them, and they said, yeah, it's Ehud Barak. That's who she's describing. So I know that it's him. But also, I mean, he wasn't hiding anything for a long time. He's in all the pictures with all the women, and like Epstein's trying to deny that he was ever on the island. But then we have all these emails that say, wow, I really liked your island today. So we know that he was all these places and he was very involved, and he claims to have only hung out with him a few times, but there's like 30 documented visits where he stays at Zorro Ranch and the apartment in New York City and the 66th Street apartments, and like he was his pal. Like, he was there all the time. And so it's like pretty undeniable at this point that he's uninvolved. And they brought him into the Deal Book at New York Times, and they asked him one small kind of lame question about Epstein, and he was just like, oh, I regret having hung out with him, and ha ha ha. And it's just so ridiculous. The whole thing is so ridiculous that anybody is calling him for anything at this point. It's beyond me.
There's so much more, obviously, in terms of what Ehud Barak was. At the time this was all going on, he was still, I think, the defense minister, at least for a portion of this time. The defense minister puts him as in charge of the Israeli military intelligence. That's what the defense minister is in Israel. He's just in charge of the defense forces. Inside the defense forces is the Israeli military intelligence. It's called Oman or Amman. Jeffrey Epstein, on record, I've got from a couple of people, worked for Amman. So did Ghislaine Maxwell. So the relationship between Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein is more about a boss subordinate relationship, or at least partners in an intelligence operation, I believe. It's much more that, or a handler of some sort. But they were working on things that were incredibly complicated and complex on a geopolitical level that would require sort of cabinet know-how and cabinet approval. And they were doing all this financial rigging that they were doing. So it's it's people always ask, this is the stuff that people question about my work is how do I know that Israeli military intelligence is real? Well, it's flashing in front of us. Why is the Israeli defense minister and the former prime minister this guy's most closest associate, the guy he emails on a regular basis, the guy he hangs out with 37 times, the guy he goes and visits on a regular basis, on a monthly basis for a year. Why are there other Israeli military intelligence figures around Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, you don't have, I don't have a piece of paper that says, hi, I work for Israeli military intelligence. My name is Jeffrey Epstein, but I'm not going to get that. But it's clear that that's what was going on. I mean, you know, this is what intelligence operations look like when you're influencing geopolitics in Syria by contacting Vladimir Putin, or whether you're triangulating geopolitical events with Putin's team and Trump and your other handler, your other Russian handler, Viktor Churkin. Boy, I mean, you sort of see how it all works out, that there are Russian and Israeli intelligence people around Jeffrey Epstein all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny because that's sat in the world of conspiracy for a long period of time. Oh, it's the Russian-Israeli mob.
Yeah.
But it's the Russian-Israeli mob.
It is.
Like, it is. That
and
is
then
working.
I really wanted to work with them. That's why he's hanging out. Bannon was just so excited with the idea.
Well, I mean, Bannon
Yeah,
also
he's
worked for the
"This
Russians.
is crazy, Mom."
Bannon also worked for the Russians and the Chinese. I mean, it's
Well,
not like,
you know what I love about Bannon, though? Bannon's such a jock sniffer. He's like one of those, like, you know, and Ellie, you can speak to this. Is that the second he gets turfed from the Trump regime, he goes running into Epstein's arms. He's like, let's work together, right? Take us through that.
Yeah. And then it's like a roller coaster. So he starts out and like Bannon's down here and Epstein's up here, and he just wants to be Epstein's buddy because he's just connected to everybody. He thinks that he's in intelligence, so he's like, well, I want to play because I want to be in intelligence, and he wants to go back to the White House and work for the CIA and prove Trump wrong. That's like his whole goal. And then there's this like shift over time as they become super bros, and then all of a sudden Epstein is under surveillance and is recognizing that there's like an FBI investigation against him, and then Bannon is going out and developing himself in this geopolitical world and finance and everything, and Epstein starts to look up to Bannon and can't really leave his house that much, and he can't travel and do all this global stuff he wants to do, so he starts like advising Bannon from afar while he's traveling the world and meeting with all these world leaders, and Bannon starts to become the cool kid, and Epstein becomes this guy who's living vicariously through him and his world pursuits. And it's just but meanwhile they're, you know, you have these academic conversations with like Noam Chomsky, and then on the other end you have the conversations with Steve Bannon, and it's just like the dialogue is just it's just like surfer bros. I don't know how else to describe it. Like the academic level just really takes a hit, and when they're talking to each other, it's just like a bunch of middle school boys and talking about women, and does she like me, and does she think I'm pretty, should I call her back, and then you know, how much should I ask for this loan, and it's just so dumb because they obviously didn't think anyone was ever going to read the emails too, but it was all day every day until the moment Epstein was arrested. Like they were emailing as he was getting arrested.
really?
Yeah, there was an email that he sent back to Steve Bannon where Steve Bannon said something about this movie that they were working on, and I saw a clip of it the other day, which is actually really interesting because Bannon's like, well, you have a horrific history with women too. And he's like, yeah, but I believe in women. Women are the best. I think a woman's mind should be able to run America and the rest of the world. I'm always
the time's up. I'm gonna be the Me Too guy. I'm gonna represent women.
I
They were
mean,
gonna start like a charity for sex assault victims. Like they were gonna like start a center. Like it's so ridiculous. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and he tried to like he at one point too. Epstein sent an email to somebody saying he would like to rent some space in the Planned Parenthood clinic.
Yes.
So
I was like, maybe he's like killing two birds with one stone. Maybe he's like, well,
yeah, I thought the
space,
same thing.
and I can
It's
just
like,
send all
maybe
the
I'll get a
girls
discount.
there when they, you know, something goes wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was weird. I didn't totally understand the purpose of that. Like,
Yeah.
well,
I understood the
I
purpose
mean,
of that, but
isn't it what it
like, what-
implies, that they just wanted to have free access to Planned Parenthood?
I
Or
think he was really, really trying to like over the top clean up his image and show that
Right.
he was like pro
Yeah,
women and
me too.
feminist,
Yeah.
which is just so ridiculous in hindsight. But like he was doing things like that. Like you said, he wanted to open a center for sex assault like advocacy and all this stuff, and just so stupid. Like because he was still doing everything he was doing up until the moment he was arrested. So, you know.
there's also
He had-
Noel Castler, who famously sewers Trump all the time, worked with Trump. He's told some unbelievable stories about Trump. Said giving him a Planned Parenthood clinic or a sex survivors assault, community would be like giving Jeffrey Dahmer a cooking show. and he's right, right? Like I was laughing my ass. I'm like, oh my god, he's 100% right, and like that's the delusion that comes through for me in these emails, and it must for you, both of you guys. That's actually a sweet view. It must be for both of you guys that have poured through these emails where you're like, he literally thought that he could change his reputation after getting caught being a pedophile that trafficked like thousands of young girls and women. He thought that if he just started a movement, people might go, oh, he's not that bad.
Yeah, I know Noel really well. He's a good friend, and he first shared a lot of the stories about Donald Trump here on Narrative a few years ago, where he spoke about the drug abuse that Donald Trump was involved in. But he also did one show with me where we just looked at this mansion. He looked at the big mansion that that Epstein had, and how he knew it as sort of a place where, like a gentleman's club almost, where all these rich billionaires used to saunter over after work or wherever and do business and hang out with these girls. And everyone sort of knew what it was. And Noel's memory of it was that on the day of Jeffrey Epstein's arrest, that they all had a big meeting at the mansion where all these big shots showed up, and they were basically handing around a cap looking for contributions for the legal fund that they were going to need to use to defend Jeffrey Epstein, because they knew that they were all going down if the stuff started getting exposed. And here we are today, where all of the stuff is getting exposed, and tomorrow we think at least a large chunk of it is going to start getting pushed out by the FBI if they follow the law. We'll see if they do. There's also a good story, by the way, from David Enrich today, and his team at the New York Times posted a brand new investigative piece about Epstein and Trump and the women, and about their marauding around New York City, modeling, targeting models as trophies. Here's Stacey Williams saying, "I just think it was trophy hunting." Who rose to fame as she was a Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition model in the 90s. She said that they basically were trophy hunting the whole time, and that's what it took over. I think Jeffrey liked that he had the Sports Illustrated model who had this name, and that Trump was pursuing me. So you could see how, Epstein would collect these women and then basically tempt people like Trump or others, but to sort of come and get them in exchange for what, you might ask, and that's really what becomes a big question. But this is a very interesting piece by Enrich.
Epstein had 100 times more charisma than Donald Trump. Donald Trump wasn't out there like flirting on the streets, because that wouldn't have done anything for him. But like Jeffrey Epstein, he knew just enough to convince everybody of everything. So if like he's talking to a philosopher, he read enough books that he could have a conversation about philosophy. He could pretend that he knew something about everything. Donald Trump has never been able to do that. He can't pretend to be anything that he's not.
Can't even pretend to be president.
No.
How bad it is.
Mostly that.
It's not going well either. Mostly that.
We've done a lot of Epstein here. We've got 20 minutes left. Should we do the rest of the show?
Well, let's let Ellie get on with her day. She's probably got better things to do than talk to a couple of middle-aged snacks.
Yes,
about the Epstein files.
Ellie, thanks so much for being here, as always. Everyone needs to follow Ellie Leonard if you don't already.
She's incredible.
She's awesome. Up the charts. She's in the top 10 of the U.S. politics right now. We got to get her to number 1. So if you don't follow Ellie Leonard, do it right now. She deserves your follow.
And great job with Wash the other day. That was incredible.
Oh, yeah. We might actually hop on later today. Now that the pictures came out, he was like, "You want to do it again?" So we might do it again. So we'll see what.
All right.
What goes.
Awesome. We'll
go follow Wash. Thanks for doing this, kiddo. Great to see you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Cheers.
One of the great stories on Substack, that lovely lady.
Yeah, she's great. The wrong way around. I love Ellie because she's one of these great, as you point out, success stories. She really is. She doesn't fake it. She's the real deal. She puts in all that hard work. She's done it while doing a whole lot of other things. She's been a frustrated writer for a long time. Had never got the attention she deserves, and now she's getting all this attention, and she deserves it because she's really putting in the work, and she's principled, and she's got the makings of a real journalist there, which is just, it's so great to see people who would, really maybe not make it without a lot of extra hard work or connections or whatever in the real world. Rise because people like you who are watching this at home are supporting them.
It's quality. It's authenticity. Listen, we don't live in an age like that whole fucking Trump perceptive bullshit. The flashy videos. We're a very well digitally educated group of people at this point. I mean, we know authenticity when we see it. And I'll draw a parallel between Ellie's success on Substack, which is recent. She spent a couple of years screaming into the void. Now she's literally one of the most important voices. And you know why she's one of the most important voices on Substack? Because she literally does all the work. It's not, she's not taking graphics. She's not, putting up salacious memes and tweets. She's not threatening anybody. She's grinding through doing her very best work, her incredible effort that she's put forward, which is reading 23,000 documents. Some would say probably 50 to 60,000 documents. I sound like Trump. Some would say, but that's just from the last dump, 23,000. She's read all of them.
Yeah.
And she has this innate ability to just put it in front of you and say, what do you think? Does this look like a guilty person? Does this look like an innocent person? What about the victims? And she stands on her fucking business. Whereas you look at Donald Trump's speech last night, and I hope that's next in the FIVESTACK.
It is exactly what we're
Thank
going
God.
to. So,
the most inauthentic, blowhard load of bullshit I have ever seen in my entire fucking life. It was a desperate man looking for a way out, trying to convince everybody that what he has done to America is not what he has done to America, and anything bad that is happening around you right now and to him is still Joe Biden's fault. He was off the fucking reservation yesterday. We talked about it last night. You had an incredible panel with Cohen and Watt. You had everybody on Lev.
Yeah,
and I dumped in just for a minute.
Did you hear that conversation I had with Cohen? That turned into quite a feisty thing, which I'm going to follow up on. And a lot of people have questions about why we included Cohen last night. I specifically included Cohen because I said I wanted to ask him about all these Epstein things, and Lev, who coordinated all of it, said, "Yeah, go for it. You're going to ask him. Ask him." So, and it was a rare opportunity. I had not had a chance to sit down with Michael Cohen and ask him about two very important intersections with Donald Trump. One of them is around the case of
Katie Johnson.
Katie Johnson, whom he says he wasn't involved at the time. He was part of the Trump campaign at the time. He said he was involved with chasing another case, which we cannot find. But it seems to me that it happened at the time he was there, and he would have known about Katie Johnson, that thing landed. And that is the case that links Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein to a rape of an underage girl. That's a really important case that landed up getting taken away because she was bullied and threatened so much that she didn't go forward with that case. That's the one thing. But then he also spoke about this other Epstein-Trump intersection, which is the house that Wexner owned in Palm Beach, the Maison Les Amitiés, the House of Friendship, and his involvement of that. And that's also raised a few interesting red flags for me. And I'll be writing about that later on. But there's, a lot of interesting textured involvement because, he was there. Cohen was the fixer for Donald Trump from 2007 onwards. So he has some purview into that world.
Yeah, there are, and that's a separate conversation, but kind of fits into or sits adjacent to the conversation about the authenticity or inauthenticity we saw behind Donald Trump and him panicking. I think there are a lot of people, and I like Michael Cohen. He's very funny, and I've watched him try his best to separate himself from Donald Trump's bullshit. And I think there's an honest conversation there. And I think Michael Cohen, will eventually at some point in time address this, head on and how he addresses it. And I've got no issue with him. But what I have an issue with was the originality of the conversation. You still have so many people that are trying so hard to separate themselves from what's coming tomorrow. Hopefully it fucking comes. I'm not sure what time those things are supposed to drop before 5 p.m. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But, what I watched last night in Donald Trump, not sure which clips that we have ready to go, but what I watched last night with Donald Trump standing, giving a Christmas message to the nation of the United States of America, not once in 19 minutes did he say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the best to you in 2026. Enjoy your time with your family. It was a fire hose of desperation, dementia. It was lie after lie after lie, which is easily disprovable, including the old drug prices are down 600%. Well, that means you'd be paying people to take drugs.
Yeah.
It was a Joe Biden hate factory last night. He lied about the trillions that he's taken in tariffs. He lied about what would happen in the United States if the Supreme Court struck down the tariffs. It was lie after lie after lie. And I have yet to see him look as panicked as he looked last night.
If you turn down the volume on this and you just watch his body language, he looks desperate, out of shape, ill, and terrified. I mean, that's basically the thing. Here is one of those clips. This is where he talks about the 3,000-year war that he's helped solve. Let's take a look at this.
I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before.
Never seen
I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East.
It's
a lie.
It's all lies.
It's an easily disprovable lie. I think 12 more Gazans died today. They're still bombing each other. They're still kicking the shit out of each other. Every war he said he's ended, he hasn't touched it. He just makes a phone call, does a photo op, and says he solved the war. That's a lie. Affordability. There is no place in the United States where gas is less than $2.50 a liter. That's just gas. Let's talk about groceries. Beef is up 7 times. Chicken's up 4 times. Fish is up 9 times in certain states. And you have 22 states in the United States of America that are in a deep recession right now, and Chinese tariffs hasn't even hit. The economy in the United States is not just dying, it is dead. And if it weren't for AI, it would be in a severe depression, and you would all be lining up at fucking soup kitchens today. That man just lied for 19 minutes. And it was all the greatest MAGA hits too, right? Like every single one of them. It was like a campaign rally while he was surrounded by Garland, which, by the way, way too much Garland. It looked like he was doing this from Narnia. Like I said that last night, I really believe it. And not only that, none of it had any Christmas theme to it. It was supposed to be a Christmas address to the nation. He also said he's going to go into Venezuela really soon. Soon has been happening for 4 months. All he's doing is blockading Venezuela, trying to blow up as many boats as he can until he can make Maduro say uncle, according to Susie Wiles. And here's the catch about last night. It was such a fucking disaster that after the actual, there was insider reporting. We put it out. You can actually go read it, deanblundell.substack.com. He turned around and looked at everybody. He's like, how was it? Susie Wiles goes, great job, sir. And then he looked at someone else who goes, I didn't want to do that. Susie made me do it. Why do you think Susie Wiles put him up there, his chief of staff?
Well, you got to ask. You got to ask that question. You know, it seems to me that Republicans are readying themselves to jettison Donald Trump. And that is both a good thing and a kind of a frightening thing, because it seems that Republicans are still very much in charge of the process. If they're going to get rid of Donald Trump, they'll find the replacement. That is sort of unacceptable, you would think, considering the circumstances we're in, that this man stole his way to an election. This man has thieved his way and criminalized his way through an administration. It seems ridiculous that we would let the same function, the same, party and the forces behind that party place a new president in the White House, because that's not going to change the problem. That's not going to fix the problem. The problem really is the bigger machine that drove Donald Trump into the White House in the first place. And that involves people like Susie Wiles. That involves people who are Republican apparatchiks for a long period of time that have sold out the country and the party for decades now. And now they want to continue to do that by getting rid of Donald Trump, hanging this whole mess on Donald Trump and pretending that it's just him. It's not just him. There's a lot of other people involved.
Oh, dude, I know. But like, this is the gamble that every single one of those dumb pricks have sort of rolled the dice for. If he can do it and we get access to power, and if he gets away with it, we're good. If not, what do? Well, we turn on him. And MAGA is a party of people with knives in a fucking straight line. And everybody's got a knife in their hand, in the back of the person in front of him, and the person behind him, same thing.
Yeah.
And Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, if she was as smart as everybody says she was when she put out that hit piece in Vanity Fair, which she's like, that's a lot. I said
quoted out of context, of course.
Yeah.
Of course she said that.
Do you think she's dumb enough to shove him up in front of a nation and in his worst moment, in his worst health, at a time when he is so fucking unwell and he is so underwater? Or do you think a smart chief of staff would hide that guy?
I think that Susie Wiles is a very smart operative who has deep ties to Russia. And this is why it should concern everybody that if she gets away with this plan, and I think it's a plan to basically put, I think it's going to be Marco Rubio in there in exchange for Donald Trump. If she gets away with that, it's unacceptable because it leaves Russia still in charge of the executive. And if you can see what's happening across the ocean in Europe and in Ukraine, and if you can see the attempt by Russia to weaken the EU and to possibly attack European countries as America withdraws, you know how terrible an idea it is to have another Russian-backed president of the United States. And unless we turf this guy and the entire party that is backed by the Russians, we're not going to get out of this mess. We're going to be heading straight into World War III.
it's not like Susie Wiles is trying to get rid of Donald Trump. If indeed, and it all signs point to probably, she's not trying to get rid of Donald Trump because she doesn't want Russia to have access to American secrets, American know-how. She wants to get rid of Donald Trump because Donald Trump is failing miserably on behalf of everybody involved. And if she can remove Donald Trump, this is my thinking. I don't know anything about Rubio. That's a bridge too far for me. But if she could remove Donald Trump, she's thinking we get to hang on to power. Our partners still get what they want because Donald Trump is failing spectacularly at home. And how do we balance that beam? And that beam is, how do we curry favor in the United States when our polling is so low? How do we get out from underneath these Epstein files, which is going to detonate all of us and destroy all of our political fortunes? And that is by sticking a guy like Donald Trump, who is so mentally fucked, emotionally fucked, so physically unwell, up for 19 minutes in front of a nation in his worst moment and saying, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
As he's having his worst day, as the political opinion polls are tanking, as the economy is tanking. I mean, they really were basically putting a target on him yesterday, saying, I'm the guy. I'm the guy that's making it impossible for you to pay groceries. I'm the guy that's making it impossible for you to put gas in your car. I'm the guy that is making unemployment soar. So 10% of young people cannot find jobs right now. 8.3% of black women can't find jobs right now. I'm the guy. Take your shot at me, because once I go, it'll be different. But that's, of course, not the case. He's a functioning president in that he's been out there in TV a lot, but the real decisions are being made by Susie Wiles and the other people in the White House, in the back office of the White House. They're the ones who are really drawing up the plans and instituting all the policies that Donald Trump is now getting targeted for. And it's all very well for her to push him in front of the bus and watch him, crash into it on live TV last night. And and he's old, and the Epstein files coming out tomorrow. I mean, all these things are just, you can predict what's going to happen by the way it's playing out. They know that Jeffrey Epstein's files are coming out tomorrow. They know how toxic that is for Donald Trump. They've been leaking things obviously to the New York Times, to other people. They know how serious all of this is, but they're still trying to manage the narrative, and they're going to try to find a replacement for Donald Trump. And why I think it's Marco Rubio is there's got to be kind of an acceptable face for everybody. It's got to be an acceptable face for the senators who ultimately have to green light this. And they like Marco. Marco's been a fellow senator for a long time. He's a good guy in their mind, or at least appeared to be. The House is probably going to find him reasonably unobjectionable. And most moderate Democrats might find him, sort of the lot of the people they have in cabinet there, he's the most acceptable of
Don't
them
you think
all.
it's going to be difficult for Marco Rubio to rehabilitate his image since going full MAGA? Like 5-6 years ago, he's railing
That's what
against
she
Russia.
said, and that's what made me think about this. In that Vanity Fair article, she says that it was tough for him to make that switch. That it wasn't where for Vance it was very political and easy. For him, it took a little bit longer, or whatever. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but she was sort of soft on Marco Rubio, saying he's not full MAGA. It took him a while to become full MAGA. It was not an easy transition for him, and I think that's her soft sell to the Republican Party and maybe to the rest of America, that he's the guy to replace Donald Trump. Now it seems no one can imagine a President Rubio, but
the first gay president of the United States of America.
It could be. He's married though, I think, isn't he? Is your wife? I think.
I don't think so.
But then he's also got this other, it's a challenge. I mean, if he is, we're stuck with this. This machine is going to hit us.
Well, and here's the thing: is that's going to piss off MAGA even more because they didn't pick him, right?
Well,
Like
they picked Gerald
what's
Ford
left
either.
of. Yeah, I know. I mean, like that's, no matter what happens from here on in, and there's a lot of positing here. We're positing that Susie Wiles is trying to undermine Donald Trump, which it appears she is by everything that's happened over the past 2 days, and that Dan Bongino's leaving and the rest of the rats are fleeing the ship. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that MAGA talks about all the time, and it is a cult. It's like, you can't, like, that was the big thing about Kamala and Joe Biden. Well, when the polls started to kind of eclipse Donald Trump's popularity for a Kamala Walz ticket, which never came to fruition, as you saw, they're like, it's the deep state. We don't even get to pick. They just moved him aside. Like, even the Democrats said it. The one thing you can't do to Americans is steal their vote and steal their intention, right? That's the one thing they get fucking crazy about.
But we've done it before with Gerald Ford, and I think that's the thing that people have to understand is that
This is in the fucking 70s, dude.
I know.
That was like 50 years ago.
The same playbook's happening. I think that it's going to make people really mad. But I think that is missing is an alternative. The Democrats have not put up anybody to say, well, this is our guy. We'd like to try our guy in the seat right now because we're better at fixing the messes. We're equipped to do it. The people actually trust us. We would have won the last election if you hadn't rigged it. And the way things are going right now with this Republican institution that's running the White House right now, everything is failing. So where is the person that is going to be the next standard bearer for the Democrat Party? Is it Gavin Newsom? Well, why isn't Gavin Newsom standing up there right now and saying, when Trump goes, which is soon, I want to be considered as the next president through the Speaker of the House. And that to me is what's really missing.
Well, he's kind of doing that with his actions by showing up to these, different functions and But to your point, but we're not there yet. Yeah. Like to Americans, it's the election's 3 years away. Not that there's a presidential election, to your point, in 2026, because these midterms are a presidential election. Trust me, they are. They're an indictment.
I think they are. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. And look,
I know.
The road to the White House for Democrats could come as early as this November. And if we aren't playing that game, if the Democrats aren't playing that game, we're not good enough to be running for president. Because that's the kind of game the Republicans play. They will find any way to get into the White House, any way to seize power, do whatever they can to get there. Democrats just don't do that. They're going to wait their turn. They're going to wait until all the primaries happen and all the Democrats get to vote for who their nominee is. We don't have to do that. Just because that's been the way it's been done does not mean we have to do it again. There is a number of ways in and out of this, and one of them is through the speakership next November, and I hope people take that up as a good idea. You've got a big show coming up about measles.
We did it this morning. We did a show with Dr. Angela Rasmussen this morning. Let's get to measles because Donald Trump is, and RFK Jr. trying to kill as many Americans as he can before the midterms.
It really is something else. I actually was trying to wrap up the show because I thought you might have at 4 o'clock. But
you know what? I don't have a 4 o'clock, but we can wrap up the show. We didn't get to a couple of items today. Yeah. One is an incredible interview I did with Dr. Angela Rasmussen, world famous virologist, infectious disease expert. She is absolutely brilliant, part of the steering committee for the Save America movement. And we talked about measles. America's going to lose its measles designation. Canada lost its measles designation this year.
How crazy.
Yeah. Back. Measles are so fucking back, bro. I mean, it's huge. People are having measles parties. And we talked about why. And we found the vector. And that vector was American Samoa. And the person that started these measles outbreaks about 7-8 years ago was a gentleman who is now the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And the story that she tells about what he did to American Samoans so that he could get data and come back to the United States and tell everybody not to get vaccinated for measles and the chicken pox is absolutely one of the most incredible stories you'll ever hear. So please go and subscribe to deanblundell.substack.com. The interview I just did with Dr. Angela Rasmussen was absolutely unbelievable. Got a couple of other stories there as well that you might find very, very interesting. And not just about measles either. We've got some stories today that sit in and around, not just the Epstein files, but projecting what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day, and what we get or what we don't get from Trump's DOJ is going to cause a nuclear reaction with the American public, within his own party, with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Everybody's going to go in a different direction tomorrow. And I don't have any predictions, but we do lay it out. We also talk a little bit about how Donald Trump turned the White House into a grievance museum. I don't know if you saw the plaques he put outside on the Presidential Wall of Fame, where every president got a write-up, and somehow he's in everybody else's write-up about being better than them, about a very racist plaque about Barack Obama. It's truly fucking unbelievable. So go and check that post out. And we also did a really cool little survey today, kind of a study actually, about who's going to the United States from Canada, who isn't. 40% of Canadians have stopped. They've canceled America from their life. And it is truly one of the most stunning indictments of what Donald Trump has done to the reputation of the United States of America. So if you can, please go and subscribe. Paid subs. God bless you. I love you all. We've got a deal for 25% off for the rest of the year if you go and sign up before the end of December. We're going to do a flash sale in and around Christmas time, but it won't be like this. So we've offered this. We want as many people to come into the community as possible. We want to continue to build that resistance. And those paid subs are our lifeblood, and I cannot thank you enough. Neither can Zev. I'm sure he'll thank you in his own way. But more importantly, sharing this content, sharing that content, because dude is on the fucking ropes, and it has never been more important to step on the gas. So please go and share. Please go and subscribe. And again, thank you for being here for the 5-stack. And I know you've got your Greatest Heist series, specifically the next chapter coming out, which delves into some really dirgy shit.
I'm actually going to hold off for that until next week because I really want to spend the next 24 hours focusing on Jeffrey Epstein and the files that come out. We'll be live as much as we can tomorrow. As these files come in, it'll be a bit disorganized, it'll be a bit messy, but I want to bring you the news as it's happening. We have quite a process developed here in terms of how to look at these files and how they fit into the overall timeline. We're not just going to look at these as individual items that come in. We're going to place them in the context of the timeline that we already have of the Jeffrey Epstein story, which is quite robust. So that's tomorrow, all day with you, Dean, and a whole bunch of other people who'll be joining us. And it's just going to be an interesting day, assuming these files do come out. Also tonight, I'm going to drop a story about what we learned from Michael Cohen last night and why it really. I have a lot of questions about it.
You're going to start a fight with Cohen?
I'm not going to start a fight with Cohen, although I've never been a full-throated supporter of Michael Cohen, but I've also been open to hearing him. And yesterday, when he answered these questions, I didn't think he fully gave the full answers, and so I'll explain why I think there's a lot of questions. But more importantly, the reason I think it's important is because the stuff that Donald Trump is really scared about coming out tomorrow is about the financial crimes. It's about the espionage. It's about the Russian money laundering. This is the stuff that really keeps Donald Trump awake at night because that's the real criminality involved in the Epstein files. So, a lot of people be chasing.
Yeah, to prevent him from screaming Russia, Russia, Russia hoax. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and he won't be able to scream that after.
Well,
tomorrow.
It delegitimizes, like what happens tomorrow if we get the whole thing. It'll delegitimize everything Donald Trump has spent the last fucking 40 years telling people he is.
Yeah.
He's a mark. He's a useful idiot that turned into a fucking president. He's a con man. He's a rapist. He's a felon. That's all he is. And he's afraid that tarp is going to come off and everybody's going to be able to see who he really is tomorrow.
Even more, potentially. And I will be outlining the connection between Epstein and Donald Trump that I've been hinting at in book 1 of Greatest Heist and book 2. But I have the outline now of exactly how they're connected. And it's a big deal, and we can show that all tomorrow as we learn new stuff. Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm excited about
I'm
tomorrow.
excited right now. I'm sitting here feeling excitement for the Greatest Heist. This is very exciting, isn't it? Folks, thanks for joining us today. As always, again, your time means more to me than anything, whether you subscribe or not. The fact that you spent thousands of people spent some time with us today and is truly our greatest honor. We're in your life. And we're grateful that you're in our lives more than you know. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow all day long. Subscribe if you want to get access to some of these chats. You want to ask us a question. You got burning questions for tomorrow. Zev and I will pop in and out. The 5-stack, I'm sure, will be in and around 3 o'clock. We might be doing a few of those. We're going to have Lev on. We'll get Waj back. I'm sure Ellie will make an appearance. We want to bring you the most important people to tell you a story that you can count on knowing is truthful. We don't want to spin anything tomorrow, but tomorrow hopefully is a day that gives, in Lost in this, relief to so many victims of the Epstein files. That gives them the transparency and the validation that they've been looking for as well. So let's not lose sight of that in our excitement to kind of bring you real coverage that you can count on tomorrow. And I hope everybody keeps that in mind.
And that's the 5 Stack. It's Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Have a great day.